Education is a top issue year after year in New Mexico, and it's number 5 on our list of the top stories of 2016. We kept this one fairly broad so we can include K through 12 and higher ed, of course. I'd like to welcome back our panel of local journalists, starting with Marisa DeMarco, general assignment reporter at KUNM. Associated Press reporter Russell Contreras is here. Steve Terrell, political reporter for the Santa Fe New Mexican, joins us, and Julianne Grimm, editor of the Santa Fe Reporter. Russell Contreras, starting with a story that's developed in recent weeks. President Bob Frank at UNM announced he would not seek a new contract next year, but the UNM Board of Regents met to discuss the future with the university and announced 2 weeks ago that he will step down at the end of this year. We're not quite clear on all the details, but more the significance of this man leaving. He had a lot of things going in motion. The Innovation District, his work with the city of Albuquerque, his closest with Mayor Berry for these things. Fairly significant change when you think about the ramifications.
Yeah, the football team's coming back, two bowl games in a row.
That's right.
But this points to a larger problem here in New Mexico, and we'll talk about this when we get the budget, is that anytime we have a budget crisis, higher education's the first to go.
Right.
It's easy, people attack it. Right. There's anti-intellectualism going around the country. And so attacking UNM and New Mexico State is very popular. What you see as a result of this is that we have a hard time paying our faculty a just salary comparable to the rest of the country, and also our administrators. So when they go in, they'll see this is not worth it. This political fight's not worth it.
Right.
And I see what my colleagues making at the University of Virginia
Right.
or the University of Houston. Why continue this? I mean, it's such a political problem. And then we turn around and get mad when our students don't go to UNM. You know, we're so provincial and say, oh, you don't need to go to Harvard, you don't need to go to University of Texas, just go to UNM. Right. Well, you're not paying it. You're not paying it. And I was talking to the president of the Santa Fe Community College, and he says, look, these cuts are hurting me recruit because I get people who want to live in Santa Fe, who want to come here and work, but they're not going to come for these prices. I can't afford to live here. That's right. So it's a conversation we need to have. And Bob, this is just another one of many examples.
That's right.
And New Mexico State suffered the same thing a few years ago.
Glad you got that in as well. Julianne, when you think about the turnover issue, you lose something when you don't have momentum, and we're all about relationships here in New Mexico. So if the president of the university can't have a relationship that's developing, that has a little bit of maturity to it over some time, what happens in the next legislative session to fight the battle that Russell just pointed out about budget cuts? You got an interim person. You know how interim person, people don't have much stroke. You see what I mean? It's a difficulty for the university as a whole now because of this.
Certainly, and I think it's a difficulty in higher education across the board. You know, these are political positions in essence, and so when, you know, really things start to go wrong or there's a little bit of a drama on 1 or 2 or 5 subjects, we don't really know what's at play here.
That's right.
You have a problem. And so we're seeing that in Santa Fe too with the changeover. College of Santa Fe became the Santa Fe University of Art and Design, which is now maybe going to become Raffles something.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think it trickles down to the students. They don't want to go somewhere that doesn't have a good reputation. They don't want to do 2 years as Santa Fe University and 2 years as something unknown. Right. So they might choose to go to a school. We'll pick on University of Virginia again. It's been around for more than 100 years. Go there.
That's right. That's right. Steve, you know, interesting, the politics of this get tricky. Again, an institution of higher learning, you know, just the way we do it here, you have to be political. You have to be. Your hands are tied. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's a difficulty for any university at this point for the legislature.
Well, of course, I go back. I was in high school during the Love Lust controversy at UNM, which a couple of professors read a dirty poem, basically, and the legislature wanted to cut their funding, and it affected them for years. Made me want to go to UNM, so I did. But, yeah, it is a political position, and I don't know what's going to change it. It's and it seems like we're the land of golden parachutes. You know, we hire these guys for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they go out with a big bonus or a position and all these perks. And if they're that bad, why are they getting all this good stuff?
Right. And for Dr. Frank specifically, you know, a position waiting for him at the Health Sciences Center. Right. After this situation's over, after some payment to pay out his current contract. So, you know, Marisa, it's a difficulty. Let me switch to another thing about education here in New Mexico. It's been difficult. And teachers of all stripe, we're losing. We're losing at all levels, I should say, we're losing. And in fact, the second worst in the country on teacher retention. Is it just about money? Is it about attitude? Is it about culture? To your mind and your reporting, what is it?
you know, there's just so much tension right now in our education system across the state, and we've heard for years the reactions from teachers working under new conditions and being expected always to do more and to figure out how to do more with less. And, you know, teachers make smallish salaries, pretty small salaries, and they spend a lot of their own money for their classrooms. And I think when Russell was talking about, you know, higher education and we're always ready to cut funding there, you know, education is being sold to everyone as the ticket out of poverty, right? So if you can't get through a good elementary school, middle school, high school education, and then go to a university, maybe it's less expensive to do so in your home state, that's going to provide you with the kind of education to get a job, to get a high-tech job if we're trying to attract those into New Mexico, right? So, I mean, that is really the issue, is we look at education as being a solution to poverty, and yet we don't have a very good system at any level here in New Mexico.
Is this a problem in Santa Fe, Julianne? I'm not up on this. Losing teachers?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that all the public school teachers are really, you know, facing this unwinnable game. Right. You know, their performance is being measured, you know, based on student success, which on its face doesn't sound like a terrible idea. But when you look at all the different factors that go into a student's success, the teacher is not the biggest factor. And it's heartbreaking when you talk to public school teachers who have been at this for their whole career, and now they're 5 years away from retirement, and they're walking away and they're going into private tutoring, or they're taking consulting jobs, or switching altogether because it's just too much. They're being punished.
It is too much. You know, Russell, I'll finish this section with you as well. The idea that, to Maurice's point, that education is the ticket, why can we not find someone, or perhaps this could happen with a new gubernatorial situation we've got coming up in the race for governor, a new attitude about education completely? Do you see what I'm saying here? Do we need a completely new set of faces that says, this is the direction we're going in now?
Yeah, in full disclosure, my wife's a teacher, a highly effective one that I'm very proud of. But when you have something like an educational system that everybody is suspicious,
right.
You're suspicious because the way we've debated it is around adults.
Gotcha.
You take it off the children or the students. And I think once you refocus that debate to see what is possible in a public school system, that what they can achieve and what is expected of them, what is expected as us, I think that changes the debate. And again, it has to go back to poverty. We have to show them what kind of conditions they're living in and then what's at stake. It is not just about you and working conditions, although that is part of it. There is a larger goal, and it is bigger than you.
There you go. Let's move on to number 4 on our list of the top stories of 2016. The Albuquerque Police Department has been in the news again recently. A former records custodian alleges officers altered or deleted even video evidence of several high-profile cases, and the monitor who is overseeing the Department of Justice agreement with the city has not been positive about progress on reforms in his reports. Marisa, you've been on this a lot, and I appreciate the work that you did in 2016. I got to tell you right now, you really kind of kept me going here. Let me start with expectations. Are our expectations out of line with APD reform? Are we expecting something that just can't happen for another 10 or 15 years, but we want it now because our problems have been so big? Or is it reasonable to expect changes right now? Is APD not, you know, towing the line here on making those changes?
You know, the problem at APD, so we had the trial of the police officers this year, and there's been a lot of talk of reform in recent years, but this problem goes back all the way to the 90s and before. People in Albuquerque have been talking about having bad interactions with police, having bad oversight of police, having bad training of police for decades. This is not a new thing. So, you know, if it is unreasonable to expect it in the short term, the question really becomes like, when are we going to have the kind of police force that doesn't see these kind of interactions with its community? On
the idea of the monitor, some folks I talked to felt like, all right, now it's going to change. If there's going to be a person there inside APD watching everything, that's the absolute thing. Well, it hasn't quite worked out that way, has it?
Yeah, the monitor released a really frustrated report, and it wasn't even on the schedule of the reports. It was an extra report that was like, you know, he said there's a confusion over activity feeling like progress. So, you know, there's maybe a lot that's happening, but it's not transparent. They're still having use of force issues that the monitor is seeing. And so, you know, and APD's response is like, no, we're fixing that. We're working on these things. And the monitor's like, the report that the monitor released was like, you say that. You've been saying that this stuff is getting fixed, and I'm not seeing the kind of progress that I want to see in Albuquerque. And the monitor's been here a while.
That's right, exactly right. You know, Russell, Marisa mentioned use of force. That's a big one for folks here. That's the one folks are really, really looking at. When you, in the reporting for AP and your own reporting as a crime reporter here, give us a sense of what would satisfy the community in your view on this use of force issue. Complete overhaul of the system, better training. I mean, have we something in the middle? What's your sense?
You know, I think we wanted to have these community meetings where you have all these stakeholders come forth and then have an honest discussion and then build the trust.
Right.
That trust is still not there.
Okay.
And yes, at the same time, there's use of force. You're also seeing the number of shootings go down.
Right.
And you've seen some high profile cases where APD has been in the spotlight and they didn't respond. I'm thinking about the Trump rally where people were throwing rocks at him and they didn't. The other rally that Trump had at the airport, it got pretty crazy and the police were restrained. I saw someone spit at a cop. So the one case, on the one hand, they know the camera is on them, the focus, and they're not responding where we can then report and use those images. But at the same time, the monitor has clearly had some frustrations out there, and I don't see an end game because I don't know if they're trying to run out the clock. It's just something that they're trying to do, waiting for the Trump administration. But then we have a new mayoral administration coming in, and everything's off the table.
That's a good point there. I hadn't thought about that. The Julianne Grimm, the idea of deleting and altering video, just it's for a lot of folks here was the icing on a very ugly cake, so to speak. Again, you're in Santa Fe and so is Steve, but it's universal, isn't it? This idea of everyone has to have a camera now, you know, generally speaking. How are we managing this idea of cameras and footage and all that kind of stuff? Long way to go here, as you
Certainly.
can see. Yeah.
You know, the police departments across the state, including the Santa Fe County Sheriffs and the Santa Fe City Police, have long had these cameras. You know, there hasn't always been a directive that every officer turn the camera on at every time. And some officers I've talked to have said that, you know, it's not as easy as you think. It's this little tiny thing, and you have to do it with your fingernail, and then if you forget to turn it off, then you've maybe run out of room. So there's a lot of logistical issues, but I think also that we depend on things that we perceive as like a piece of evidence. You know, a video image from a police officer, whether it lasts 5 minutes or 20 minutes, is this piece of evidence. We saw this where there was a rally on the Santa Fe Plaza where the guy who was pegged by police as the organizer of the rally ends up running through a shopping mall and has a little scuffle with a police officer who ends up falling down the stairs. Oh, wow. And there's an expectation that once we saw the body cam footage, it was going to be really obvious, did the protester push the police officer or did the police officer fall? And really it doesn't clear it up. And so I think that maybe people want the video evidence to be more effective than it is.
Right.
There again, if police are allowed to alter those images without any sort of consequence or really even any knowledge that they can alter it,
right.
That presents a whole nother level.
That's right. And public trust, Steve, when you get stories like this, that things are being altered and deleted, what are we to believe?
Yeah, I mentioned before, I didn't even know you could alter these things.
Right.
I thought they were set in stone. Julianne's right. Some of these things are very, very hazy, these body cameras, and hopefully when technology gets better, that'll help. But if you have people who can alter them and turn them off if they don't want to, that defeats the whole purpose.
Marisa, sorry about that, didn't mean to. Skipping back actually a year or some, you covered the Boyd trial quite heavily in publications you were there. Has that changed us forever here, again, on this idea of video and context and having video? Everything's different now, isn't it, because of that Boyd video?
Yeah, and I remember that the Boyd video was released because the police department thought that it was going to vindicate that moment. And instead, it prompted a lot of outcry and reaction from, people in Albuquerque. So, and covering the trial, that video was so central to the whole thing. And really what the defense attorneys for the police officers did was break it apart like second by second by second and trying to really describe and prolong every moment of that what is ultimately a pretty short video, and try to reframe this thing that everyone had seen. And I think, it's remarkable that there were murder charges brought against police officers in Albuquerque. It doesn't happen much around the country. Nobody can remember the last time that it happened here. And the fact that the jury was a hung jury, that 3 jurors, said that would not agree to a complete not guilty finding is interesting in Albuquerque. It means that there has been a shift in how we think about this stuff.
Pick up on that if you would too. The idea that we had plenty of time to look at this trial as it went along. There was plenty of transparency, plenty of coverage. The public was looking for a very specific result and didn't get it. Do you know what I mean? Is that okay at the end of the day? I mean, everything went through its course. The system did what it was supposed to do.
One of the activists, David Carrera, who led the take over the city council and also the sit-in, he said when I talked to him after the trial, he's like, this is something I expected. I didn't expect this many in the hung jury, but we never expected a conviction. What we thought was the idea of somebody, and he didn't necessarily agree with this, but that a lot of activists thought this was the first step. Having a trial, putting it out there is what the people wanted at the time. There were some that did want a conviction, but the fact that you finally went to the whole motions of having a trial was a step, was a positive first step. And when I was there at the trial, when I would attend, and when they were going through the step-by-step on this video, I kept thinking of the Rodney King case in the early 90s, where they basically took apart defense attorneys took apart that tape and basically said, liar. They pointed at the tape and said, you're lying. That tape is not the full indication of what happened. And I got a sense of that in this trial too as well.
Interesting there. We'll have to end it there. Now, we'll be back in a few minutes to talk more about top news stories of the past year.